Hello, friends. I have a couple of friends who, as we started to move into the pelvic floor work, have been talking about how they can't really feel much that's happening down there. Very common. This is one of the most mysterious areas of our body, I believe. And also about wanting more of it. So I'm going to do a short little focus down in the pelvic floor and through the sacrum area. Right. You're going to start on your back. That's why the camera is so close here, right? That way, hopefully, I mean, there's not a lot to see. You can't see my pelvic floor, right? So that's not going to be very helpful, but just trying to follow my words. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, have a block on standby. Blocks are super helpful tools with this work, right? So before we do anything, right, you can just be in Shavasana style arms. I would like you to have your feet hip distance. So the hips might be working just a touch to keep the knees and the feet hip distance, but I want you to still notice just your relationship right now of the floor and the low back. Yeah. Is it down on the floor? Is it really close to it? Is it really far up away from the floor? There is no right or wrong answer. We're just simply noticing where our lumbar spine, our low back is at compared to the floor at this moment in time. Now, if you have a really big curve, I want you to notice, are you rocking more towards the tailbone part of your sacrum, or is there just that large of a curve and you're in the very middle? Again, there's no right or wrong, don't adjust. And if your low back is flattening down towards the floor, I want you to notice if that also correlates to you being more towards the upper rim of the sacrum and the tailbone being really light and moving up towards the sky again, or are you in the middle of your sacrum? So now I'm going to ask you to make an adjustment. I want you to lift your hips, and when you come down, I want you to try to sit on the very middle of the sacrum. That's that upside down triangular shaped bone. So I'm not by the tailbone. I'm not by the upper rim of the back of my spine and my pelvis. I'm trying to come right to the middle, best I can tell with my body, of that sacrum, right? And then just notice if your low back has changed at all. Now, keeping that, we're going to bring the block in. I like to have the entire width between my thighs if I can. It's just feedback loop, right? And I come down, you'll notice I separated my legs and I'm trying to sit right on top of my pubic bone. Yeah. So take an inhale, and with your inhale, we're not doing anything. The block is there, but we're not holding it, right? And then on the exhale, move super slow and just move into the block just until you feel slowly those magnus adductors, those big inner groin. You'll feel them flex and kind of move into the block potentially. This we can usually feel easier than the pelvic floor. And then release that. Right, so we'll do this on a couple of breaths. Exhale gently, slowly, slowly, slowly. Don't push into the block, right? Move so slow just until you feel that big inner groin muscle, the biggest, the magnus adductor, engage into the block. Inhale and let that go. I need that one more time. So I'm barely working here, right? I'm not flattening my low back. This is what I see a lot of. I see a lot of people get really light in their tailbone and pull their low back down to the floor. So now check in, keep moving into the block and make sure that you still have the same amount of space in the floor of the low back. You're still in the middle of your sacrum, best as you can tell, right? And you are moving into the block. And go ahead and release that, put the block off to the side. I don't know about y'all, but to me, that never feels like it should be that much work. And I'm always like, whew. So now we're going to pretend that the block is there, right? We've had that feedback. Now, here's what I want you to do when you move into the block, the imaginary block, right? Don't do it yet. I want you to notice, see if you can notice your perineum, which is that patch of muscle between your vagina and your anus, or your prostate, your penis and your anus, right? Your genitals. That little strip of muscle, that's the area I want you to try to focus on and see if you can't feel how when you move into that block and that magnus adductor turns on, right? How that pelvic floor, that perineum specifically, pulls up towards the crown of the head. Yeah. So we're not doing a ton, we're observing a lot. So my upper body's in Shavasana, right? I imagine I have a block. If you want the block, you can do it. It's just extra work, right? Inhale. And with an exhale, we're going to gently move into that block until we feel that magnus adductor and see if you can't feel anything either in the low belly or the perineum. Inhale and soften. Like you can barely see, and all you see is my inhale, my belly rise really right. Exhale, again, I'm moving into the magnus adductor just until I try to feel and sense that pelvic floor, that perineum pulling up to the back of my mat, that up. So the up is right now, I'm using directions based on our body, not on the space around us, right? One more time, exhale, move into the imaginary block. Close your eyes and try to sense that perineum gently pulling up into the body. And release that. So now, don't worry so much about that. We're going to go into a couple of pelvic tilts. So I want you to inhale, rock towards your tailbone, let the low back overarch. Or get a bigger arch, I should say, and then let your tailbone reach up to the sky. My hips stay on the ground. So I'm rocking on my sacrum on the back of my pelvis, and then move back and forth a couple of times. You see how small this motion is in my body. I'm not trying to do anything huge. The biggest thing when I teach this stuff, the hardest thing to get people to understand and then even once they say they understand it, to actually do it is to go really soft, slow, and subtle, right? People want to do more. We're just trained that way. It's a society thing, right? And then now, I want you to add on, you're going to inhale and arch just like we've been doing, right? And this time when I exhale, I'm actually going to add a little extra pull of my belly down, and I'm going to see if I can't work that low back towards the floor. Inhale. So it's small. It's not huge. Please don't go crazy. And exhale. When I come down, instead of just exhaling and rocking, I'm going to pull gently down with my low abdomen. Inhale, neutral. So pelvic tilts. Exhale. Now stay here. Keep breathing, pulling the low belly down, and now move gently into that block, right? And then interlace your hands behind your head. Keep that and lift up just a little bit. Let me say that better. Let your elbows lift up a little bit, right? And together. And so the head hangs in the hammock. My neck is not working, but my chin is gently tucked in. Any of my people who work with bandhas or want to know more about them, we're technically working our 3 bandhas right now, right? Inhale, come down. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let it go. We're going to start to play with it more and more, and it will come to you right when it comes to you. So again, I'm going to exhale. I'm going to rock to the upper rim of my pelvis. I'm going to pull my low belly down. I'm going to move into the imaginary block. And then I'm going to let my elbows move a little up and together. And it's going to just gently lift my head and my upper body just a little bit. I'm not lifting high. And bring that down. Go ahead and bring your arms out. Walk your feet wide. Lean your knees in and pause. So with this work, I think one of the cool things about it is you can, don't do 500 of them in one day, even when people do. I'm going to put one thing out there. Again, I talk a lot about safety, but I think it's really important. These things can be really powerful. And we're talking about our nervous system and about our beautiful bodies, right? And if we push ourselves into something we're not ready for or that we're not doing correctly, it actually can do more harm than good, right? And the example I'm going to bring up is, women are taught Kegels and they're told about Kegels, especially for, the health of the pelvic floor, for birth, for prolapse, for all kinds of various things, incontinence. But the thing is that when they're taught really strongly, and then people push into them. And do you know that there's a lot of women who then go to give birth and they're actually so tight through their pelvic floor, through their Kegel, through their perineum, all of the different bits and pieces down there, that when they go to give birth, they actually do a lot of damage that then has to heal if it can, right? So don't overdo it. But that said, if you're working really soft, slow, and subtly, do this once a day. Just start to notice it when you get out of bed in the morning, before you go to bed, right? When you have a chance to lay on the floor. It's such beautiful, I don't know. I think of it as a retraining for the pelvis. A lot of us hold a lot of tension and we think we have to poo, 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 and sit-ups and sit-ups and sit-ups and all these things. And it's really beautiful to watch some things that have been way too tight and way too aggressive unwind and release, and some things that have never been asked to work to turn on. And I'll try to find the link to the, I'm just going to talk to you for hours, evidently. I'll try to find a link to the the pelvic clock exercises, and I'll put if this stuff interests you, I have that. Oh my God, it's some of the best stuff ever. Made a huge change in my sacrum, my low back, my belly, my abdomen, my abdominal wall, my pelvic floor, just everything. It's a whole different ball of wax than it was when I started yoga. I'm gonna stop talking.